indigenous communities sponsored by the UNDP. Today she will speak about Buddhist women as conservationists, environmental ethics, and poverty eradication.
Respected. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. I hope this doesn't take time off my presentation. Okay. Respected Venerable Bhikshu and Bhikshunis, Dhamma brothers and sisters, I thank Venerable Lekshela and the Sakyadhita Committee of Vietnam for giving me the opportunity to be here to speak to you about Buddhist women and the environment. I'm very happy and honored to be here. To begin, environmental ethics is the foundation for our attitudes towards the environment. Environmental ethics raises deep questions about individual responsibility for the well-being of nature, which is linked to our very survival on this planet. In this paper, I wish to demonstrate the link between environmental ethics and global poverty. The paper also aims to raise awareness among Buddhist women on the importance of environmental protection by prescribing simple measures to protect the environment through small acts of mindfulness and compassion. Now, Buddhism, through the 5 precepts, advocates respect for life and property. The theory of cause and effect is a powerful concept which regulates the behavior of human beings and explains the causal relationship between all natural elements. The Samudra Vanija Jataka shows how human misconduct affects plants, animals, our rivers, and land. The Aganya Sutta of the Digha Nikaya shows the consequences of overexploitation of the natural environment, one of which is the deterioration of human society through lack of basic necessities such as water. There really is no difference between living and non-living elements. These are just dualistic concepts which blind us to the reality of life. Brothers and sisters, the world is experiencing a severe water crisis. The demand for water is increasing as the global population of 6.6 billion today will reach 9.3 billion in 2050. On average, every person needs between 20 and 50 liters of fresh water a day to ensure their basic needs for drinking, cooking, and cleaning are met. In contrast, people in Europe use more than 10 times the amount used by people from Asia and Africa, who do not even have access to even 20 liters of fresh water per day. About 2.6 billion people, including 1 billion children, live without basic sanitation. About 1.1 billion people in developing countries, including traditional Buddhist countries, do not have access to a minimal amount of clean water. People who live in the countryside are forced to defecate in fields, ditches, rivers, and buckets. In some countries, city people lacking access to toilets defecate into plastic bags, which they throw onto the streets, as they have nowhere to dispose of their waste. This is pretty similar to cats and dogs in the streets. Humans conveniently dispose anything and everything into the rivers and waterways, our primary source of drinking water. For example, slaughter waste directly discharged into the Ganges River from leather factories in Kanpur, India, and also cremation waste has caused the Ganges to become virtually unusable. Millions of people downstream are unable to use their rivers and are undergoing immense hardship. All these pose severe public health problems such as diarrheal diseases, as ditches, rivers, lakes are polluted with garbage and excrement. Globally, most diarrheal deaths are caused by lack of access to basic sanitation facilities and improved drinking water. Diarrhea, caused by bacteria and viruses in dirty water, kills more people than HIV/AIDS or malaria. Almost 2 million children die each year for want of a glass of clean water and adequate sanitation. There are more diarrheal deaths compared with war casualties in the 1990s. Now, how we take water for granted is food for thought for all of us here today. One of the chief evils of water scarcity in the world today is the livestock industry. More than half of water consumed in the US is used to raise animals for food. Between 1,000 and 3,000 liters of water is needed to produce just 1 kilogram of rice and 13 to 15,000 liters to produce just 1 kilogram of beef. In contrast, an average person's daily drinking water requirement is only between 2 to 4 liters. The livestock industry also deprives poor people of food at the expense of the rich who desire meat and alcohol in their diet. While 40,000 children die each day due to hunger and malnutrition, most of the corn and oats are grown to feed livestock in the US. The second aspect of environmental degradation is its impacts on the atmosphere and climate change. The meat industry produces more greenhouse emissions than all other automobiles and trucks in the world. The livestock industry contributes to land degradation as there is more and more demand for pasture land. To accommodate new pastures, forests are cleared. Deforestation as a result of new pastures directly contributes to water shortage, drought, and local climate change. Therefore, the livestock industry is a major threat to global freshwater supply. On the personal usage level, water overuse, or rather misuse, is reflected in the way people in developed countries utilize water. An average European uses more than 200 liters of water per day, while the average American uses double the amount. One flush of a toilet in Europe consumes more water than is available to scores of individuals living in urban slums or arid areas in third world countries. Water losses from dripping taps in developed countries are more than the amount of water available each day to more than 1 billion people in poor countries. We have seen the escalating problems in our world related to water and sanitation. But what has that got to do with us anyway? Why do we need to care at all, since most of the people who are actually suffering live so far away? As long as no one throws garbage or feces in my backyard, it's fine. Well, is it? We need to think again. The Mahayana Avatar Saka Sutra states that not a single element in this world exists independently. Everything is interrelated. Therefore, one's actions have profound effects not only on oneself, but on others, as all natural elements are interrelated. At the end of the day, harming the environment is really harming oneself. Much of the global water problem is due to climate change caused by global warming, rising sea levels, droughts, floods, and the likes. Planet Earth is only going to get warmer in coming years. More and more people will be affected by drought, causing severe malnourishment. The source of water for South and mainland East and Southeast Asia, including us here today in Vietnam, comes from snow and ice in the Himalayas. Due to accelerated glacier melt in the Himalayas, there will be reductions in water and availability of water in South and Southeast Asia. This is what it was before, and this is what the Himalayas are in the present day today. You can see it for yourself, how it's affecting us. Climate change will continue to cause disruptions to monsoon patterns in South Asia and fewer rainy days, and more people are affected by drought. There is a strong correlation between poverty and lack of water and sanitation. Lack of access to water and sanitation is a form of deprivation which is life-threatening and undermines human dignity, which subsequently destroys opportunity for human development. And thus, people in this world will become poorer and poorer. Each year, there is a loss of 443 million school days related to waterborne illnesses, resulting in lost educational opportunities in childhood, leading to poverty when they grow up. Waterborne diseases also retard the learning potential for more than 150 million children worldwide. Lack of basic sanitation facilities is also a major factor for girls dropping out of school in developing countries. Women are most severely affected when their environment is degraded. Many cultures dictate that women and girls take care of the households, therefore women usually shoulder the largest burden in collecting water, often spending long time walking in queues, waiting in queues and carrying water, which is a major source of time poverty. Now, deprivation in water and sanitation perpetuates gender inequality, disempowers women, and keeps them deeply entrenched in the web of poverty because they don't have time to do any other thing. They don't have time to learn marketable skills and fully participate in their communities. All this has brought about a realization that access to water and sanitation is a more critical problem than access to food, healthcare, and education. Traditional Buddhist countries are economically challenged and have issues with water and sanitation. Let us take a look at some comparisons between Buddhist countries, traditional and also contemporary Buddhist countries. Less than half of rural population of countries such as Cambodia, India, and Nepal, their sanitation rates are pretty low as compared to higher, 100% coverage rates in advanced countries such as Japan, Singapore, USA, and so on and so forth. Now, and then the gross domestic product, the GDP in developed countries are also 50 times as high as that of traditional developing countries, which face severe water and sanitation woes. The problem is, the irony is, that traditionally economically challenged Buddhist countries do not consume as much energy as the economically stronger countries. Look at their energy use. Their GDP is low, their energy use is also low. Compare this to the advanced countries. You do the math, huh? Developing traditional Buddhist countries are also more environmentally friendly. Countries like Vietnam, India, Bhutan, Myanmar, their greenhouse gas emissions is just as low. It's very low compared to advanced countries. And it can be 10 to 20 times higher. So what has this got to do with us again? Well, what can we do as Buddhist women? The Buddhist teaching of mindfulness is a tool to reduce environmental degradation in the present day. To illustrate the manner in which we live our lives in the present day, the story told by the Buddha in the Sun's Flesh Sutra will be most useful here. A couple with their little child on their way seeking asylum had to cross the desert. Due to lack of geographical knowledge, they ran out of food while they were only halfway through the desert. They realized that all three of them would die in the desert, and therefore they finally decided to kill their little son. Each day they ate a small morsel of his flesh and hung their son's flesh on their shoulders so that it would continue to dry in the sun. Each time when they finished eating a morsel of their son's flesh, the couple looked at each other and said, "Where is our beloved child now? Where is he?" Yeah? And they cried and cried and cried. So therefore, through deep reflection, we will be able to see the way we consume the resources of the world today is actually pretty similar. If we eat meat and drink alcohol with mindfulness, we will realize that we are eating the flesh of our own children. Therefore, in order to get to the root of environmental problems, simply by abiding with the first precept, we as individuals and collectively as Buddhist women can adopt a vegetarian diet so as not to contribute to global warming, water scarcity, and a host of other environmental problems associated with livestock production. The basic logic of going vegetarian is that if we stop consuming, the livestock industry will stop producing. We will come to understand that with each piece of meat we eat, we ourselves are responsible for environmental degradation, and on top of that, the poverty of millions of our brothers and sisters worldwide, since we are all interdependent on one another. Another personal strategy would be to look deeply at how we utilize water on a daily basis. The Buddhist teachings teaches us to use water frugally. Buddhism teaches humankind to refrain from polluting water sources. Pollution of water and urine, excreta, or spittle is frowned upon in Buddhism and is considered as an uncultured act, entailing a dukkata offense in the Buddhist Vinaya for monks and nuns. Simple measures such as closing taps properly when not in use, or not using showers to bathe or collecting rain water to wash clothes and utensils can be adopted as water-saving measures. Other measures include reusing your tap water to flush toilets, or reusing water from simple things like washing vegetables to water the plants. Turning off your taps while brushing your teeth, washing plates, clothes, or even bathing will help to save a significant amount of water. Mindfulness training is an excellent starting point for anyone who wishes to play their part for the environment. Most people think that environmental protection and global poverty should be solved by embarking on external projects, more often than not depend on huge funding and technical expertise. Few of us see the need to start practicing mindfulness in daily lives as a means of transforming the world. Therefore, internal transformation is a powerful means to transform the world. At the end of the day, it all depends on whether we, as Buddhist women, regardless of our traditional backgrounds, whether we have the willpower to do our part to reduce poverty through our individual and collective action. What is advocated in this paper is that ultimately the most effective means to tackle environmental degradation, water and sanitation problems, and global poverty is through small but effective measures at the personal level, that is, ourselves. Mahatma Gandhi once said, "The difference between what we do and what we are capable of doing would suffice to solve most of the world's problems." To conclude, if Buddhist women practice mindfulness of the environment as part of our daily practice, it would go a long way in reducing environmental degradation and global poverty. With this, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Tashi children. Our next speaker, many of you may know very well and think that she's from Taiwan, is actually from Singapore. Bhikshuni Choman received monastic training and became a Buddhist nun under the guidance of
members of the Sangha and friends in the Dharma. I appreciate to have the opportunity to sit here and to share with you my brief views about protecting the environment. Protecting the environment should begin with you and me. Let us see what is happening in our world today. This is a reference I got from the Climate Change Summit. 1/3 of all people on Earth are living in areas without water, with water stress. 2 million have less than 50 liters of water a day for drinking, hygiene, and cooking. 1 billion have only access to contaminated water, which is devastating since 80% of all diseases are waterborne. 2 billion people in 40 countries are short of pure water due to intensive irrigation and misuse. River get dry, for example. In some regions in India, underground sink by 2 meters per year. If the global mean temperature increases by 2% Celsius by the end of this century, probably 250 million more Africans will suffer from water scarcity in Africa. The melting of some glaciers in the Himalayas means the water supply for billions of people is threatened. One prognosis said that 1.8 billion will live in extremely dry areas by the year 2080. If we look around the world, that's the information I got from the website. Over 25,000 children die every day due to hunger around the world. That is equivalent to one child dying every 3.5 seconds. 17 to 18 children dying every minute before I finish this paper. A 2004 Asia tsunami occurring almost every 1.5 weeks. And Iraq's death tolls every 16 to 38 days. Over 9 million children dying every year. Some 70 million children dying between 2000 and 2007. This is the pictures I also got from the website. Children are dying of hunger each day. You see this boy carrying the young baby, dying of hunger every day. And this is the pictures of Kenya. The mother has no food for the child, but in certain places, people are wasting food. And this is also our behavior, our daily behavior, wasting food. And this is another pictures I took about wasting food. This is also one pictures I travel around and I like to take picture of people wasting food. How? And this is one more picture. You see the plastic bag, they are all rice and being thrown away to be collected by the garbage collector. And this, the yellow one you see, these are rice being thrown away. And you will say, oh, we can feed the dog, but how much the dog can eat? And this is a picture I took here in our conference. People taking so much food and not finishing it. So I hope we here be more disciplined from today onwards. In the Chinese Buddha Sutra, it said, every grain of rice offered by the donor is as huge as Mount Sumeru. If one does not attain liberation in this life, he or she will have to repay the debt with major hardship in future life. And this is the living conditions I took in India. You just see the living condition. Do I like it? I don't think I like it. With all the rubbish and the housings all together, the rain, the polluted rain, and the people living in this area, and living together with the garbage, which is the home. And so IPCC summarized the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change in November summarized the situation in the report. With 90% probability, most of the last 50 years of global warming is due to human influence. So we, the most intelligent sensor being on Earth, we are the creator of environmental issues. So this is how to protect the environment. It's from you and me. When people talk about environmental protection, it is easy to think first of the environment protection or ecological destruction. There are now serious threats to our Earth. And in spite of the many voices who bring out research paper or science declaration and so on, it's apparent that many people are just talking, but few seem to be taking any serious actions. We ask ourselves, are we conscious enough of our own daily behavior? For instance, when we shop at a supermarket, we may be used to the convenience of plastic bags that are being supplied instead of bringing an ecological friendly shopping bag. We may prefer tissue to carrying a reusable handkerchief. When we brush our teeth or washing our face, we tend to let the tap water continue flowing instead of using a cup. When we get into a car or come indoor out of the heat, most people will just switch on the aircon to the coolness setting. These are some of the unexamined personal awareness. Have we asked ourselves, have we thought about the many people in the world who do not have clean water to drink? Have we thought of the hundreds and thousands of hungry people who need food to fill their stomachs? Do we cherish the limited resources on earth? Are we awake to the current food crisis, water crisis, and climate change? It seems that our daily attitude and behaviors are the major cause to the many problems that humanity faces today. We unmindfully, ignore the needs of environmental protections that affects our earth. Stopping the pollutions, to stop industrial pollution, indiscriminate chemical wastage, overfishing, overgrazing, and clearing of the world once prolific forests could be and maybe is beyond the capability of ordinary people like us. But what can we do? If each and every one of us put into daily practice the thoughtful actions about how to best interact with our surroundings, together we could bring about a huge change. When we have a healthy spiritual environment inside ourselves, and then actualize in our daily behavior by protecting the environment in various ways, we can help avert the environmental crisis on Earth. By doing so, we can give future generations a fair chance to work peacefully and live happily on a healthy Earth. The Buddha, of course, we know he's the forerunner of all environmental protections. In the Aguttatara Sutra, the Buddha said, planting trees provide coolness. Besides purifying the air, it also conserves the earth, which is manufactured to others and married to for oneself. Planting trees not only beautify the environment, but also is a form of practice. Are we awakened as ourselves? We can protect the environment in our daily actions. Women play an especially important role by teaching the children this important truth. We can use this as a means to change our lifestyle. Of course, if we can change our lifestyle and the patterns of consumptions. In Buddhist terms, we can become more awakened in our daily actions. The Sukha Sutra said, if sentient beings continuously engage in the 10 unwholesome actions, the impact will be felt in the environment which will suffer. That is, we will suffer. But if we perform wholesome actions, we can help to reverse the damage to the environment. Our action affect ourselves, others, and the earth. We are all intimately intertwined. There are some simple tips in our daily activities. For example, prevent wasting of food. Take less meat and fish. Try being vegetarian. Save on daily availability of resources. There is water, electricity, papers, and clothing. Take shorter showers. Brush your teeth using a cup. Bring an eco bag for shopping. Recycle papers and plastics. Minimize usage of disposable utensils. Reduce the amounts of tasks. Set the air conditioner to a higher temperature. Maintain your car and follow emission guidance. Use durable and fuel-efficient tires. Bring an eco cup to conferences. Thank you very much. At this conference, we each have a cup. Are you all using it? In the hotel, those who are staying at big hotel, if the towel could be used again a second time, save the huge amount of water needed to wash them every time. Switch off while using the computer. Switch off computer in the evening when not in use. One computer left on overnight consumes enough energy to print 10,000 sheets of data. Disconnect your mobile charger immediately after your phone is recharged. If only 10% of the world mobile phone users follow this simple rule, enough energy will be saved to run 60,000 European households. Place the refrigerator at least 10 cm from the wall. Avoid placing it next to a heater or in the direct sunlight, as an outside rise in temperature of 10 degrees can result in an increase of energy consumption by as much as 10 to 20%. Ensure that the refrigerator is never more than 180% full. Avoid opening the door unnecessarily. As opening the door once required the motor to run at capacity for a full 10 minutes to restore the temperature. This is a reference I got from the Taiwan Environmental Protection Bureau. Reverend Master Xing Ying, my teacher, has taught numbers widely on environmental protections, addressing both physical actions and mental cultivations. Some guidelines he wrote in one of his books on the spirituality of environmental protections, which I like to share. That is called beautifying the inner mind. Speak quietly, do not disturb others. Keep the ground clean, do not litter. Keep the air clean, do not smoke or pollute. Respect oneself and others, do not commit violent acts. Be polite, do not intrude upon others. Smile, do not face others with an angry expression. Speak kindly, do not utter abusive words. Follow the rules, do not seek exemption or privileges. Be mindful of your action. Do not act unethically. Consume consciously. Do not waste, especially do not waste food. Be grounded. Do not live aimlessly. Practice kindness. Do not create malice. To build a harmonious, peaceful, and safe environment requires the participation of ordinary people like us. We are all ordinary people, whether young or old, rich or poor, strong or weak. To give the future generation hope, we need to transform our mind, our discipline, our action, and care for each other, our surrounding, and the earth. We need to protect the physical environment and internal spiritual environment as what is mentioned in the Vimalakirti Sutra. If one wants a pure land, we need first to purify our mind. When the mind is purified, it is the Buddha Pure Land. So let us hope that we here, the Sakyadhita International Women, we call ourselves the daughters of the Buddha, that we have the devotion and determination to inspire the youngster and those surrounding us to place our weight on current reality. Thank you very much. So, very words, they are the words of dignity. Treasure every glance of rice. This is the way of wealth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bhikshuni Choman. Our next speaker is Enshun Cho. She received her PhD in 1997 from the University of California, Berkeley in USA. She is presently professor in the Department of Philosophy at Seoul National University in South Korea. If you could just give her a minute for the PowerPoint to start.
Hello. Do you hear me? Do you hear me? Okay. Sorry for the delay. It is my greatest honor to be in this podium and present my small paper on Bhikshuni, Jiyul Sunim. We call Sunim. The monks and nuns are called Sunim. And it is I will just read the paper in the proceedings. So I will skip some part because it's a little bit long. So in this paper, I introduce and explore Bhikshuni Jiyul Snim's effort to protect nature and the environment. She is a Buddhist nun of a monastery located in mountain Cheonsong in southeast Korea, where a controversial 13-kilometer express train tunnel was to be constructed. The tunnel was to link Korea's two major cities, Seoul and Busan, with a 2-hour high-speed train trip. It would also, however, cause irreparable damage to the environment and ecosystems of Mountain Cheonsong and threaten the existence of the numerous species of plants and animals. Ultimately, despite many years of fighting, the tunnel was completed and the beginning of express train service was announced. In spite of this, Jiyul Snim has not only reformed public opinion on the importance of environmental conservation and the sanctity of life, but also spread to the greater public a critical attitude toward policies of economic development that comes at the cost of natural degradation. For these reasons, she is often referred to as a life activist rather than an environmentalist activist. No other figure in modern Korean history has elicited more acute debates and controversy surrounding economic development, environmental damage, and its consequences than Jiyul Snim. Due to her efforts, the environmental impact of Korean development is no longer a foreign concept. Indeed, her influence in raising environmental awareness in Korean society has been so great that one may clearly demarcate pre- and post-Jiyul periods. I will skip the next paragraph. She was a novice nun, and so I'm going to the next paragraph. She left behind the mountain and the monastery where she had spent such a long time and went to the city to protest against the construction. Her mentors cautioned her against leaving the monastery, but seeing her determination, did not try to stop her. She began picketing and conducting silent demonstrations in front of Busan City Hall, eventually moving to Seoul, the capital of the country. Her actions drew a lot of attention from the public, but not to the degree of causing the government to re-examining the tunnel project until 2004, when she filed a lawsuit. Jiyul Snim filed a right of nature lawsuit, a non-human class action suit, which was unprecedented in the history of the South Korean legal system, in order to stop the lethal scaring and permanent destruction of the mountain and its ecosystem. In this legal action, the plaintiff was the long-tailed clawed salamander, a rare species in Korea, which represents the countless species of plant and animal life in the mountain. The motion stated that the construction project would drain aquifers and create vibrations and electronic waves that would cause irreparable damage to the ecosystem. In the process of pursuing the case, Ji-Yul Snim conducted numerous sit-ins, hunger strikes, and pilgrimages that consisted of walking 3 steps and prostrating once on the ground, a practice that she repeated for hundreds of kilometers. The fact that one woman would fight so hard, showing such iron will, perplexed the bureaucrats as well as the public. After a long series of futile negotiations tainted by a number of breached promises, she eventually began a fast unto death protest in 2005 for 100 days. All across the country, major environmental, human rights, and religious organizations organized candlelight vigils, petitions of support, marathon prayers, and solidarity fasts, as well as making prayer quilts and paper salamanders. The fast ended on the 100th day in a climatic manner. The government at last promised to conduct new environmental impact studies on the construction and agreed to temporarily halt the construction. A long and dull period of conflict in the Environmental Impact Committee began. The committee, composed of professors, representatives of government, environmentalists, and public policy researchers, eventually came to a controversial conclusion stating that the environmental impact of the project was nearly negligible. Following this announcement, construction on the tunnel resumed. She conducted a sit-in at the construction area but was soon arrested for obstruction of justice. After the publication of the committee's report, the mainstream media immediately began to criticize her protest, accusing her of wasting millions in national funds during the time that construction was halted. Ji-Yul Snim was denounced by the media and even some environmentalists as being wild, stubborn, and uncooperative in her protest, and often labeled an extremist. When those reports began to circulate widely in the mainstream press and in the popular alternative media, her actions provoked an outpouring of support as well as fierce public debate over the ethical and long-term political implications of her method of protest. Although she was voted the greatest activist by activists in 2004, in fact, it was activists and other monks and nuns that expressed the most discomfort with Ji-Yul Snim's excessive protest techniques. As her friends expressed it, activism typically means making realistic compromises, rallying supporters, and strengthening power. Ji-Yul Snim completely ignores whether anyone supports her or not, throwing herself into extreme methods. However, she was certainly not simply protesting for the sake of protesting. Her protests were the result of her intense personal goals and convictions. Although Ji-Yul Snim's efforts have created a huge response in Korean society and have elicited many analyses of her protest movement, it seems as though there is little understanding of the philosophy that motivated her views and actions. Some state that she shares a strong attachment to nature as a protector of the mountain, or provide vague explanations that Buddhism is a pro-environmentalist religion. To date, however, there have been no discussion on the strong Buddhist convictions that underlie her activism. Her words are no different than any mainstream environmentalist. even though a strong undertone of Hawaiian Buddhist ethics of interconnectedness underlie her words. Okay, I will skip that part. In the next page, page 131, in the middle. The physical, I will skip that paragraph too. Okay, I will skip that whole, the half of the page 131. I'm sorry to the translator. Earlier today I gave a wrong version. I will start from the paradox. The paradox of the impermanence of beings and our interconnected world cannot be more vividly presented than in the photographs that Jiru's Nim has taken. Her exceptionally visual presentations in photojournals and other digital media present her holistic vision of the Buddhist world. Underlying her life activism is the conviction that all things in the world are interconnected and the destruction of one affects the others. All living beings are interconnected, but we sometimes forget that due to the lack of communication. Communication does not necessarily mean ordinary language and opinions that appear in the media, but can occur in various ways. The language of nature is especially expressed through visual presentations. Jiru Snim says that human beings have become disconnected from nature by not understanding the language of nature. I will skip the rest of the page and go to the second last paragraph in my presentation. So recently in 2009, after hearing about the government-led 4 Great Rivers Development Project, she was once again stirred to activism. This is what she says, quote, "My heart began to race again, and as some said, I knew I wasn't here in this world on a picnic. They took away core truth from the mountain Cheonsong issue, which is that people's minds have become alienated and ruined our lands." End of quote. With these words, she set on pilgrimaging of the Nakdong River area on foot. On the way, she analyzed the maps, measured the location and the metrics of the river, and took numerous pictures. Rather than protest through resistance or fasting, she has stood up again to present her findings and photos from this pilgrimage at schools and meetings. I will end the presentation with this one quote from her writing. "I have spent the past 5 months endlessly roaming the banks of the Nakdong River. Although I felt like bursting out in tears at the sight of the land being destroyed without any resistance, like a parent who tries to hold back tears in front of their child, I could not ignore these things. Now I return to the turbulent place they are pointing out. If Mountain Cheonsong called to me with its pure beauty, the river calls to me with its tragic majesty. The seasons are certainly restless." Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Enshu Cho. Thank you. The next speaker, the final speaker and not the least, is Jiru Shi from Singapore. She received her doctorate in East Asian Studies from the University of Arizona in USA, and she is presently Associate Professor in the Department of Religious Studies at Pomona College. Today she will speak about Greening a Pure Land, Zengen, 1937 to the present, and Buddhist Ecology in Contemporary Taiwan. If you can also give her a minute for her PowerPoint to start.
No, this is morning. After, yeah. Okay, I'm speaking. Yes. Hello. Can you hear me? Is this good? Thank you. Thank you very much for the answer, for helping me to fix this, and thank you very much for the very kind introduction. First of all, I'd like to also echo my thanks, as other speakers on the panel have done so, to first of all, the organizers, the Sakyadhita committee, Lakshay La, as well as Christy Chan, and also the local hosts who have been really wonderfully inspiring all throughout. My paper is on greening a pure land and the focus is really on the same organization that, very fortunately for me, Julia Huang in her opening speech, keynote speech, has already spoken about. So in that sense, I'm lucky because I am going to assume that you know very much about Tzu Chi by now at this point in the conference. I will try as much as possible to look at I'm really not an environmentalist, but much more interested in visual culture of contemporary Taiwanese Buddhism. And the take in this paper is really on the visual culture or the visual representation of Buddhist ecology in terms of Zhen Yan and her group Tzu Chi in contemporary Taiwan. I'll try now to follow my paper as much as possible. The key picture is really the one that you see right now on the PowerPoint. But here is Master Zhen Yan, and just a brief section. The beginnings of Tzu Chi can be traced to 1966, when the Buddhist nun Zhen Yan gathered a small group of disciples and housewives to sow seeds of Buddhist charity in the remote countryside of Hualien in eastern Taiwan. From these humble roots, Tzu Chi has really transformed into a very staggeringly wealthy and complicated transnational corporate network that performs social welfare services and provides Buddhist outreach all over the world, and you can see that. Since Zhen Yan first urged her followers in 1990 to take up habits of recycling, there is the recycling pictures. Tzu Chi members have faithfully heeded her call, such that today its environmental practices really constitute an integral of the movement's activities. Tzu Chi's work lies in providing for the impoverished, homeless, starving. It naturally, therefore, engages in a substantial amount of global rebuilding, global building from domestic housing structures to public architecture like schools, hospitals, not to speak of the new Tzu Chi buildings that are constructed as the ever-expanding movement, which I'm sure Julia Wang has spoken about, lives its track across the globe. A hallmark of Tzu Chi's building projects is the incorporation of environmental practice into architectural design, which is where my interest lies, really. By incorporating environmental practice into the architectural design of its buildings at its headquarters of Hualien and elsewhere, Tzu Chi seamlessly intertwines Buddhist and ecological ideals into everyday life. Nowhere is this amalgamation most evident as in one of the key architecture, which is the Hall of Still Thoughts. And the center of this is really the fresco that you saw just now. I'm going to go through the Hall of Still Thoughts, the architecture for you to see. And this will be what I'm focusing on in the auditorium. Skip to the next paragraph for the translators. The Hall of Still Thoughts is really a multifunctional and operates simultaneously as a venue for arts and cultural performances, business and computing administration, conference hall, Dharma lecture hall, exhibition gallery, historical museum, religious training space, ritual space, and so forth. In several ways, this religious building is an architectural innovation to accommodate the new roles of Buddhism in modern society, particularly the patterns of large-scale laicization and secularization that can be witnessed in the Tzu Chi community. The spatial heart, which you are seeing in the PowerPoints up there, is really the sermon hall that extends from the 2nd to the 9th floor. Overhead, skylights. You can actually see it, I guess, right here. These are the skylights. The skylights overhead are the skylights which allow natural lights, and the skylights allow natural light to dance through and bounce across the floor and walls. In the center, in front, as you are seeing it right here, is the picture that is usually called the illustration of the Buddha healing the world, designed by a mainland Chinese artist trained in Japan. Executed at Zhenyan, the founder's request, the scene really illustrates. Zhenyan requested the scene to illustrate the reduplicated bodies of the Buddha returning from other distant lands to listen to its preaching of the Lotus Sutra. In the mural, the Buddha, let's hope the next one is clearer. You see here the skylights and so forth. Here are the skylights. In the mural, the Buddha holds a blue almond bowl in one hand, while his other hand stretched out gently to stroke the earth in a gesture of healing, actually, while emanations of the Buddha return from distant lands in the 10 directions and gradually merge into one. The Buddha is depicted as an ordinary young monk, part of the vision of humanistic Buddhism that I will talk about the theological basis, wearing long robes but with the kesha over his left shoulders. As I see some of the bhikshunis here are actually wearing too, conspicuously missing the orange Indian robes of the traditional Buddha icon. So during the process of designing the mural, Zhenyan explicitly expressed the hope that this mural would represent a milestone in the history of Chinese Buddhist art, resulting in the reimagination of the Buddha icon as the contemporary Buddha. The Buddha standing barefoot over clouds, lotus pedestal, pink petals falling down, and you also have Bodhi leaves suspended in mid-air, planets oscillate, animals. It's all very natural, and some people actually have commented to me when I present this that it's New Agey art, basically. The entire scene is wrapped in shades of blue and white. Again, some people comment that it's New Agey. Plants and rocks, as you see, not in this picture, but sometimes it's there. But basically, this is the abode of steel thoughts, while the ceiling over the hall right here, the skylights are kind of dimmed, and then you have a kind of natural pullover facade over it. A special fabric is pulled over to create a night scene. And when this is on, it creates actually a special lighting effect that simulate the night sky, replete with the shimmering Milky Way, glittering stars, and planets. According to the director of Chiji Architectural Projects, the overhead planetarium, this is basically a planetarium scene, is supposed in this scene of the galactic cosmos, the mural signifies our world, and the miniature model of the abode of steel thoughts right here really is the residential monastery of Zhenyan and her disciples, signifying the regional geography of Chiji in Hualien, Taiwan. This threefold strata in the visual imagery forms a spatial geography that suggests the manner in which the art of healing the earth works, beginning with the individual Chiji followers across the nation of, efforts to spread the seeds of mental transformation, their good words, throughout the local region of Hualien first, across the nation of Taiwan, then throughout the earth, and ultimately diffusing through the cosmos. This visual imagery certainly expresses the Buddhist teaching. It's supposed to express the Buddhist teaching. When the mind is pure, the land is pure. So that transforming the mind becomes the way to actualize a pure land right here and now. And for those of you who know the Renjian Fojiao, humanistic Buddhism, that is a key teaching of humanistic Buddhism, Renjian Fojiao. Furthermore, the layered spatial imagery really invokes the reciprocal causality between macrocosm and microcosm. This has to be understood within Chinese culture, the kind of cultural representation of how the universe works. Because Zhenyan here is in her vision of the art is trying to correlate the microcosmic mind with the macrocosmic earth to kind of have a visual statement of what is Buddhist ecology. Early China already regarded individual moral failures as triggering collapses in the socio-political order, which would then produce further imbalances in the larger ecosystem, bringing about natural catastrophes. This kind of correlative thinking built around the mutual reciprocity of macrocosm, microcosm, undercuts the threefold spatial imagery that you see in the art. There you see, in the sermon hall. In the mural, the island of Taiwan. Do you see the island of Taiwan right here? There it is, actually. The island of Taiwan is in the mural, the island of Taiwan is really represented through a luminous effect. So it's against a semi-translucent globe of the world. The shimmery effect really brings out, Taiwan right at its center as the source of hope for the ecological, social, and spiritual transformations of the world. I go on in a paragraph to analyze the Taiwan-China kind of relationship that I'm going to skip. Actually, you could read it if you're interested in that. So the translators, I'm skipping a paragraph and go on to what probably is more interesting to us here as a Buddhist audience, a critical step, the doctrinal basis. A critical step in Zheng Yin's re-articulation of environmentalism is an appeal to humanistic Buddhist teaching as an authoritative rubric for which to understand environmental practice. That environmental practice is really to be understood as part of this worldly bodhisattva practice to establish an earthly pure land, which I've already spoken about. This, as other papers I've noted earlier in the morning, are connected to the efforts of reformer monk Tai Shi and his student monk Ying Shun, who originally designed to reorientate Chinese Buddhism away from an unhealthy focus on funerary and afterlife rites in the mainland Chinese Buddhism of that period to this world in which we live in, and to practice bodhisattva practice in this world. Skip to the next paragraph. By the 1990s, when Zheng Yin called out to Chiji followers to develop an ecological consciousness and undertake environmental observances as part of Buddhist practice, humanistic Buddhism was already widely accepted. And in fact, it's coming to, or is already present here in Vietnam as well, as I noted, is accepted in Taiwanese society. So humanistic Buddhism provides a kind of source of authority, and successful Taiwanese movements like Chiji are able to appropriate humanistic Buddhist ideals. It is only, however, environmentalism was hardly a theme with which either Tai Shi or Ying Shun actually dealt with, because their age, they were dealing with social, political, and economic conditions of China in early 20th century. It is only with the economically affluent and technologically fairly advanced society of late 20th century Taiwan that Buddhist leaders like Zheng Yin, and I guess the Korean leader that Cho-In-Shu was talking about, would feel it incumbent upon them to address contemporary social issues like environmental protection, just as the audience here is addressing gender issues in all sorts of ways. Chiji is certainly not the only Buddhist movement to encourage and practice environmental protection, but it is certainly one of the very successful Buddhist environmental enterprises. The crux of Zheng Yin's message on environmental protection sits so well with her explication of Chiji's vision that it is well illustrated through the centerpiece mural installed in the Hall of Still Thoughts, as you see on the PowerPoint, which visually communicates the doctrinal and soteriological cogency of Chiji's vision and work, both in the religious and social spheres. Let me skip and conclude. In this manner, mental transformations become the groundwork for establishing an earthly pure land, the heart of humanistic Buddhist teaching that's envisioned in many of the Buddhist, modern Buddhist, contemporary Buddhist organizations in Taiwan. earthly Pure Land is envisioned as an unpolluted and a green globe that actually, in the context of Chuji, particularly actualizes the lotus world described in the chapter 6 of the Lotus Sutra. And I conclude with a quote from the Lotus Sutra. The land will be flat and even with the land will be flat and even, with crystal for soil and jeweled trees as adornments. The ground covered with fine flowers, purifying it entirely, so that those who see it are delighted. May we also take delight in the Pure Land we are creating.
Thank you very much, Jirushi. And I thank all the speakers, 5 speakers, for keeping to the time. Thank you very much. Now I think we have questions, time for questions. Maybe a couple. I think I still have about 10 minutes for questions, if you would. We have heard about the problems of environmental degradation, and from the speakers you have heard the struggle to preserve the environment. Some have given us various suggestions how to preserve the environment, and others have spoken. And others have spoken about the ongoing practices to preserve the environment. And maybe the issue is what we can do as Buddhist women, Buddhist men, monks and nuns, everyone, for the environment. It is thrown back to every one of us about what we actually can do. And of course, there is one workshop that will engage with this question from 3 o'clock. But before that, if there is anyone who would like to ask a question or a comment, please raise your hand. Or any one of the speakers want to comment or ask a question to your fellow colleagues? I think people are getting a little bit tired.
I have no questions and I have no answer, but it's again my request. We are all daughters of the Buddhas. We are coming here to protect the environment, depend on our behavior and our discipline. We don't just call here and write on the paper. So I'm calling everybody